Yeah, give us a minute. We're getting ready to get it started. Just take a quick break. We get the film started. I want to flip my paper real fast. I'll take this little break.
The scholar continues his discussion of the African origins of Christianity.
It will seem strange, it should seem to you, that the first worship that man worshiped was not a man, not a god, but a goddess. The goddess Hathor. Hathor, 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 symbolize as a cow with a sun disk between her horn, which the Jews adopted and called the golden calf. The present Hindus adopted it and called it the sacred cow. When you go to Egypt right here and the western bank of the Nile, there is a temple at a place called Dendera, Denderah, built in honor of goddess Hathor, and you will see 3,500 faces on each of the columns and our places of this African woman. And that's why they will have you go to Mecca and to Palestine and to, Jerusalem and to Bethlehem, but never to Egypt, never to Ethiopia, never to Nubia, to see the ancient tombs dug into the walls. When I say a tomb, this building is less than a quarter the size of the average tomb. I'm not talking about an 8x5 thing, where all the records are there. When you talk about this, the source of this having come through Judaism, but where did Judaism get its belief source? When Abraham's supposed to have come from here with his 18-year-old daughter at 80 years of age, obviously he didn't mess with that girl once. 80 years old, walking across the desert with an 18-year-old wife. Let's be reasonable now. But all right, if it's in the Bible, then it's right. But you forget who wrote the Bible. You say, inspire men of God. I'm inspired by God too. Aren't you inspired by God when you need to go to the toilet and you don't get an inspiration? What happened? They be doo-doo all over the place. So you better get an inspiration to go to the toilet or you don't go. And you're in trouble. An inspired man by God, what does it mean? Does it mean he tells the truth? Then the Pope in Rome shouldn't use erasers. He's perfect. You shouldn't need erasers. Nobody you know inspired. And all those writers had erasers, or at least they had a piece of the shirt to wipe with. But you let that word fool you so that anything anybody shoved down your throat, all they got to do is tell you, they're a man of God. Or they're inspired by God. What more inspiration they got than your daddy or you? You let them frighten you with that. There's nothing against religion, but all I'm going to say tonight, I'm a religious man. But I don't mean to be a foolish religious man. I don't mean for nobody to tell me that there's something wrong with my child the day it's born. I don't mean for anybody to tell me that when the story of Adam and Eve, bad, good, or indifferent, that sex is bad. If it is, how come you here? Then all of you bad. And one in here isn't the result of sexual intercourse. If you don't understand that, I'll give you another word for it. If in fact then that God made sex, and it's the only way that a woman could get pregnant to have the baby, or the result of sex, even if they have artificial insemination, then you're saying that what God gave was bad, and therefore that if a woman had a child and wasn't married, that the child is a bastard, illegitimate. Jesus' mother Mary wasn't married to the angel nor to Joseph. You're not going around calling Jesus a bastard. And where in the Bible it says there was a city hall that you stop and had a blood test, then went and get the license, and then get married. Your Bible said, and God made two people, a man and a woman, and sent them out to multiply. He didn't send them to do 2 times 2 equals 4. Send them out to get sex and have babies. That's what he sent them to do. But you let some sucker come and tell you that the mere fact that your child is born in sin, and therefore something is wrong with the child. What's wrong with the child? How else could the child have been born? Why would God curse the thing that God made and checked out? You think that God made sex and didn't check it out? Would you make a car never run it, test run it? But no, You see, but you don't say nothing about it because a man stand up for a woman and tell you, run a lot of things down on you, make you feel guilty, make you go in a mental institution for the things that God gave you to do. But the Africans didn't bring this. Along the Nile, when the Africans established the worship of goddess Hathor, the first known deity, long before they worshipped Ptah. That was the first known male deity. The first known female deity was Hathor. And then there was another female deity by the name of goddess Nut. Spelled like nut, Nut. In this here, in most of the pyramids, most of the temples and most of the tombs that you see, especially at a place called today Luxor. The Greeks originally call it Thebes, but the indigenous Africans for the first time call it Wa'at, W-A''A'-T. There on the ceilings of the tombs, you see the body of this woman, this African woman, with stars and moons and everything symbolizing the outer space, the heavens. And one side, her head comes down, and on the other side, the legs come down. And then you see the god Geb, G-E-B, Geb, on kneeling on one knee and holding her, listen to this, at the two columns of heaven. One hand on the vagina and the other on her breast. The two columns of heaven. That's where heaven was, and that's where heaven still is. The most ancient writing about the word heaven, the ancient Egyptian Africans call it Aminta. The opposite of that they call Abydos in the hieratic writing. But when this was thousands of years, there was no Adam and Eve story yet. There was no Jew yet. There was, of course, no Greece yet. We don't have Greece. Doesn't come in history until 833 BC when Homer wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey. And Homer said that even the gods of Greece, the gods of Europe, the two first gods, Zeus and Apollo, came from Ethiopia. Go read. You're in college. And I'm sure that you have to read the Iliad and the Odyssey. And you come up with your PhDs. And you're wearing your fraternities and your sororities. And you don't know none of this. And your Greeks, your Akababa, Baba, Daba, Lapa, Baba, and all of that. And you know nothing about yourself. Your Greeks, freaks, everything else. But know nothing about yourself. You're proud of everybody who learned from you, but not of yourself. Of course, this would be called racism soon. Yet I haven't said that anybody inferior or superior. All I'm dealing with me. I have no time to deal with other folks to be racist because there's so much of me that I need to deal with that have been so long neglected that I don't have time. Man, I would be teaching another 2,000 years ago, start it. The point is, if you knew this, then you will not be kneeling in, sitting in, busing your child from West Hell to No Hell. Your child going to the white neighborhood, but never a white child coming to your neighborhood. Isn't this strange? You busing to where? You prove that you're inferior because you bus your child to the white neighborhood, but never does the white people bus their child to your neighborhood. And now you're begging for a day. You're going to Washington to beg for a day to take off in honor of King. You see, the Italians got a day for an Italian that got lost. Trying to find here. Think he wants to go to the east, wound up over here. They got a day for that. The Irish got a day for a man that said kill some snakes. came all the way from Italy to kill snakes in Ireland. The Pole got a day for General Pulaski and so on. They took a day. They didn't beg a living soul for a day. They took the day. You don't got to be on your damn knee all the time begging. Take the day. And if you're going to take the day, remember that a woman named Rosa Parks did it long before Martin Luther King Jr. was told by his mama, not a black woman, go down there and get yourself straight. I didn't send you up there in Boston to get soft. A black woman. And then when you're taking the damn day, remember that Betty Shabazz doesn't feel the death of her husband no less than Coretta Scott King. Just remember that Malcolm, when he died, left 6 daughters. The last 2, the twins, he didn't even know existed because Betty was going to surprise him and tell him she was pregnant. And he got killed before his birthday, but he got killed before it happened. So his last 2, he didn't even know that his wife was pregnant. So when you're going to take a day, take one for Malcolm too. Take one for Garvey. Take one for Garvey, take one for Du Bois. Take one for Nat Turner, Denmark, Vesey, Henry Highland Garnet, Sojourner Truth, and Harriet Tubman. Take one, David Walker. Please don't take none for Christmas Adams. Got shot in his rectum, defending his master. He was no hero. He happened to be black. He didn't do nothing for black people. He didn't do anything for himself. He got shot. For somebody else, victory. But let's go on here. Nat Turner and Denmark Vesey understood Christianity. They took up arms to defend themselves as Jesus took up the stick and went some in the synagogue. All right. Yeah. This European Jesus that you teach up on the wall, and that was Jesus. Man, ain't nobody from this part of the world coming here with the synagogue that's going to act like that and tell you to be moderate. But then again, there's some people with special interests, and their interests may not be necessarily your interests. There was a thing that said that those who call Lord, 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 Father, but then Simon Peter, you can be the first guy. Hollering all the days my name, but who will betray me? That's what I hope that be a little warning. But all along the Nile here, when Abraham was born, what did the Jews have? Not goat, sheep herder. They came in here and they met what? They met cities. They met an educational system here called the mystery system. They met medical practice, science, law, engineering. There is no Greece yet, there is no Rome, there is no Europe in history. When these Africans under Sesostris III changed the flow of this river this way to stop the inundation period. And now you're talking about you're afraid of mathematics and science, that black people don't do well in mathematics and science. It's only when we're singing. But even that we don't do anymore. We don't sing the African spirituals, which we misname the Negro spirituals. We sing songs from Wales and Scotland. One of the songs that get me so damn sick is the other day I went in the church and hear black people singing, "Make me whiter than snow, oh Lord. I'm washed in the blood." God, it is a sad thing for black people to think that they were washed in red blood, black as they are, and then become white as snow. Sickness, everything. And you see nothing wrong with singing that song. And singing it loud, very loud, to the top of your voice. And then you got an aria. The big song for the day Sisters going there belching out. Black people sitting down can't find a single song by a single black person to sing. Wedding going on. Your most precious daughter is coming down the aisle with a most precious young man. And you can't find a song by a black person to sing at a black wedding, in a black community, with a black minister, a black congregation. What's wrong with you?
Wow.
But you mad with me for telling you, come on here. Then we got to go back. When the Africans here wrote the negative confessions, 42 laws called negative, Negative confessions, CONFESSIONS. Listen to some of them. By the way, they were revised in 4100 BC. I have not killed man nor woman. I have not made light thy bushel. I have not spoken ill of my mother or my father. Sounds familiar to you? I think you call them the 10 Commandments. And you found them in the book of Exodus. There was no Exodus yet. When the Africans go in the tomb of Ramesses III, and you would see them, all of them on the left-hand side as you go on down. Plus other places. Go look in, they may be here. Brother Listerbelt may have one. Look in the rear section of the book of the coming forth by day and by night, which they call the book of the dead. And you see it there in a section called the Osirian drama. Osirian drama. In honor of God Osiris. And you see where Moses got the 10 Commandments. Not from Mount Sinai, Mount of Horeb. He got it from here, where he went to school. He got 42, not 10. Moses the African, here, was born here in the city of Succoth, your Bible says. How in the world, if you were born right here in Columbia, South Carolina, is it possible for you to go to kindergarten, from kindergarten to college, your bachelor's, your master's, your doctorate, your postdoctorate, and never heard of the United States Constitution? Is it possible for Moses to have been born here and for 80 years went to the school system, became an officer of the government, and never heard of the basic fundamental laws of the society, the negative confession? No. But how come you don't hear it from the pulpit? How come nobody from the pulpit tells you, let's go to the Holy Land? Here it is, 11.3 million square miles of Holy Land. The continent of Africa. Because you had too many Tarzan and Jane. Too many Jeffersons and whatnot. You see? But then if you deal with this, you deal with your own heritage. You forget that the present Pope in Rome is going back to Poland to worship at the feet. This is his own words. And it must be good because white man said it. He said, I am going back to what? Worship at the feet of the black Madonna and child. Where is the black Madonna and child? There she is sitting in the audience. There she is. Any black woman out there with a child is a black Madonna. But no, how could it be a black Madonna when you beat her like a drum? You walk off and desert her with her baby child. You desert her when you get $1 as soon as you could throw a basketball knee-high to a grasshopper and run across the airport at Hertz with a suitcase and call yourself Herschel Walker. You can't find her no more. When you garrote behind the trees and in the backyards and in the alleys, she's a good black Madonna, but as soon as you get a buck or a name or you hit the numbers, then you can't get her because you want somebody commensurate with your dignity on stalkers.
Go.
But I ask any one of you mothers out there. What is it about the story of Mary and Jesus that you didn't have with your child? Didn't Mary deliver her child with pain? And you say that God cursed Eve. And the curse was she had to bear pain when she gave birth for her sin. What was the sin? She ate of the forbidden fruit. Didn't Eve have pain when she gave birth to Jesus according to your story? What sin she committed? She was the mother of God. The Roman Catholic says, Holy Mary, mother of God, blessed are the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. But let us go further then. If we are going to take that, what you're saying, didn't Mary breastfeed her child? Of course, you don't do that no more. It may mess up your shape. Your man nursing and you don't mess up your shape. He got big jawbone, your little child got gristle, and that mess up your, but the man don't mess it up. Contradicting values. Didn't Mary clean her little boy when he messed himself? One time at the university the other day, I was speaking to a young lady who was ultra religious, and I said, well, Jesus messed himself, his mother must have said, stop! I said, what happened? She said, Jesus never messed himself. I said, well, when he came out of Mary, he knew how to change his own diaper. And even in order to change the diaper, something must have happened. Did he know to pull down his clothes the day he was born and go his diapers and go to the bathroom and defecate? She said, well, Jesus didn't do such things. I said, well, last time you said Jesus was drinking some wine at the wedding, right? He drank water, he had a supper and all that. Then he must have gone to the bathroom. Or since there was no bathroom in the days, the outhouse, and if there was no outhouse, he'd be in the yard or someplace. But they couldn't see Jesus. They jam up as soon as you said Jesus, or some black folks get all jammed up. Can't think no more, can't reason. That's why anybody could do what they want to you, because they can, as soon as they say God, they can pull the wool over your eyes and do you in. If somebody take 10%, if you give 10%, ain't nothing wrong but demand something for your 10%. Amen. You don't want somebody to read a book for 10%. Take 1% of the first 10% and buy a book and read it. Amen. He must do something more than just tell you what God said, because you don't know what God said. No more than you do. He had no conversation with God that you didn't have. The concept of God, the deity, man when he came here, man when she came here, male or female, wanting to know from whence he or she came beyond mother and father. And since no one could tell, then wanted to know for the purpose of being here. And then where do I go after here? Man then. Man's own mentality, man's own mind, man's own thinking, man's own brain, man's own heaven, devise answers. Nothing wrong with that. But then understand what it is. No man came down from a Superman, no anything like that, and wrote in a damn thing. This is the ideas of men, both male and female. And until we understand these things, and until we understand the source from it, when it came down the Nile, and these African geniuses who conceived this, wrote their books, before Solomon plagiarized, before he stole the Proverbs from the Pharaoh Amenhotep, A-M-E-N-E-M-E-O-P-E, who died 1,000 years before Solomon was born, and taught all of those so-called proverbs that Solomon and the other Jews stole. Before Moses, they admit that Moses gave to the world monotheism, an African by the name of Amenhotep IV. Amenhotep IV, otherwise called Akhenaten, who died more than 49 years before the birth of Moses, spoke about a one and only true God named Aten, A-T-E-N. The man that got rid of his army in non-violence. A man who got rid of his army because he didn't believe in violence. Dr. King should not have gone to Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi in India. Gandhi himself, they should have read it, and the picture doesn't tell it, spoke of where he got the idea of a method of nonviolence as a strategy by reading the works of Akhenaten. But they couldn't put a picture of Akhenaten because too dark, too black. Even you won't go to it. Because you see, when you get a chance to make a film, the other day in the 60s, what you made, Badass Sweetback, showing a black woman with her crotch wide open and the cameraman with a telephoto lens deep down in that woman. That's the way you treat the black woman. When you got a chance to make a film, made her a prostitute, and everybody in the film were prostitutes. Then you made another film, Cleopatra Jones, and you had a machine gun inserted to the woman's vagina, shooting bullets. That's how you show your black woman. There's no film on Cleopatra. There's no film on Nzinga. There's no film on Harriet Tubman or Rosa Parks. No film on Makeda, which you call the Queen of Sheba. No film on Hatshepsut. Oh, those names you don't know all, right? But you know all the white names. You know Betsy Ross and all the Rosses. You know, you get what I mean. Virginia Dare and all the little dairies. Huh? But it's, and you never asked. Huh? You never asked the question, how come? All people take their race from their mothers. I hate to disappoint you, brothers. But you know, like the old saying, I am mama's baby. I am daddy's maybe. There's no doubt about who my mama is. She can't hide that one. To hide it, she had to get rid of me. But as long as she let me come, everybody knows. That's mama. And so we inherit from our mamas. But you see, we didn't used to beat them yet. See, nobody had told us that she ugly. Nobody had told us that her natural sweet hair. Lord, it feels so good to run your hand through one of them woolly hair that them sisters got. Sister, keep, if you got a woolly hair, keep it. Don't you put no egg and champagne and beer and cocorico and all that kind of stuff, and then malt liquor, dye, this thing and this Clairol. But I know what you're doing it, sis. Don't get mad with me now. I know what you're doing it. You're doing it because that damn fool don't know how good looking you are without you doing that. He wants you to look European as much as possible. And you doing it. You know what? Tell this sucker if he don't want you the way he is, get lost.
Oh shit. I got one more for y'all. Hold on, man. Hold on.
University. In this
I gotta
final
get intermission.
segment, the scholar continues his discussion of the African origins of Christianity and fields questions from the audience.
No, religion must relate. I am speaking religion. I haven't stopped from it all day. Praying has nothing to do with religion. That's a personal thing. You and your concept of a maker. Religion must be. Religion is the deification of a culture. And a people who cherish their culture soon find that culture becoming a religion. A God of love must love me, and then I will love that God. My God cannot be helping the enemy, and then I love that God. It is inconsistent with human dignity and reasoning that a God that constantly for 400 years helped my enemy could be my God. I must have a God that helps me, and I will love that God. Otherwise, you're not asking me to be real and to be human, since God is the concept of man. What we are talking about as I boil down for question and answer period, which we will have later, very good, is to just give you a touch into the concept of religion. And since I spoke of Judaism and Christianity, let me just remind those of you who I did not speak about Islam. It was Hatzat Kubad ibn Rabad, otherwise called Bilal, who started the first part of the Quran. It was Muhammad ibn Abdullah himself who stated that his grandmother, his mother's mother, came from Ethiopia. It was he himself who sent to Ethiopia to the emperor to send him help when he was being chased out of Mecca. When in Mecca, they were worshiping the goddess Alat, A-L apostrophe L-A-T, Alat and Al-Huza, A-L apostrophe L-A-T, Alat and Al-Huza, A-L.
Get it? A lot. A lot.
A-H
A lot.
U-S-A. Allah became Allah. And the most important symbol of Islam is still the Kaaba, a black stone, a meter from
The
Ethiopia.
Kaaba, the black stone, y'all know what I'm
Most
talking
of the
about.
writers of early Islam having come from Ethiopia, such as Al-Sinin, Al-Aziz, and others. But when they show the picture of Muhammad done by an Arab, they only show Bilal as a slave. They didn't even show that slave. But what kind of slave? That his slavery was as a lawyer, because he was when he went to Mecca as ambassador for the Ethiopian government, they then held him there and enslaved him over political risk. Nothing said when they came here. That was the beginning of Islam was here with Muhammad ibn Abdullah in 622 AD, or it's also known as the year 1 of the Hijrah. The Hijrah means the year Muhammad ibn Abdullah fled Mecca with Abu Bakr, Umar the Great, Hassan Kubat ibn Rabat, Bilal, himself, and others, the other followers. And it was 639 that they came here as conquerors with what is called the jihads. Jihads, or holy wars. Everybody uses it, the Africans, for the foundation of their religion and concepts. We are even told that Benny Goodman is the king of swing. I guess Duke Ellington and Fats Waller, and for some of you young people, you may not know these names, but your mom, your grandparents should be able to tell you them. Count Basie and Lionel Hampton and all these. One brother just died about 2 days ago, on the West Coast, Father Al Hines and others. I guess name of the emperors. If Benny Goodman is the king, they're the emperors. But then, as I said again, the blues and things you look down at, but you forget that your gospel music came out that blues and that jazz. Go look at Mr. Dorsey. Ask old man Dorsey, who played in a jazz band and went into the church that rejected that form of music because it didn't come from Europe. The same gospel that you wouldn't give up today was rejected because it was introduced by a black man by the name of Dorsey. There's a very same famous song that you sing at funerals by Dorsey. Anybody? Nobody? That's your exam. Almost every black Christian funeral, that song is sang.
Mm-hmm.
And it's by Dorsey, the man that brought and made the gospel music in your church. Oh yes, you know who did the Star Spangled Banner though. And you feel bad if Aretha Franklin jazz it. But you don't worry about Kate Smith bugging it up. Again, and it comes from a deep sense of what we don't get here on Sundays. Sundays when this black woman comes with her child and her man, she doesn't want to hear nobody cursing her out. She doesn't need anyone after catching hell all week long from this man who's been doing it from 1506. In the Western Hemisphere, starting in Haiti and Santo Domingo, then called Hispaniola. When the Pope in Rome, the Roman Catholic Pope Martin V and Bartolomeo de las Casas started the slave trade to the west in 1506 on an island now called Hispaniola, shared by Haiti and Santo Domingo. How many churches said when the Haitians were dying on the beach there in Florida? How many ministers say, let us rise up? But no, you're rising up for the Koreans and the Vietnamese. Not realizing that the first place they brought you, the boats did not come straight from Africa here. Neither there. We were in Hispaniola. We were in Iberian Peninsula from 711 AD to 1485 before we lost power. We had even gave Europe its first university, the University of Salamanca in Spain. We created the first educational system. It is there. After we lost power, they took the first 4,000 of us and carried us to the island of Hispaniola. 1506, it was not until 1619 or 20 that the first group of us came from Barbados to Virginia. And we came as professionals, architects, engineers, lawyer, and 2 doctors, and so forth. I do not know, in closing, what is it you feel sad about? With a history like this behind you, how could you be sad? But I know, you gotta be sad. You didn't know it. And I've just touched the first line of the first sentence of a billion sentences. To talk about you. To talk about how great you are. You say, well, if I'm so great, how come I get it like this? Gunpowder, that had nothing to do with Christianity. They said that the Africans ate the Christians, missionaries. Oh, what a shame we did not. But let me tell you, it is never too late. The man who mistreated us knew what he was doing. Why should we now say, well, after all, he's a child of God? Isn't it strange that when somebody dies, all of a sudden they become good? Beat a woman all day of his life, kick her, starve her, and when he died, he said that she's dead. God, I'm so glad you killed him. I wish I had the chance. The minister tell her to say, well, after all, he's God's child. Don't you beat your grandchild? Or have you gotten so modern that you let the child knock the hell out of you?
I want to play this last 10 minutes before we get back to work. But, I got one more for you, man. I'm just going to play a little bit of it. Let me see. Is this my boy? Let's see which one.
Kathy broke up with you?
Okay, that's Sheik. Let me see. That's Sheik and the D. Let me see. Alright, no, this is my other guy.
I'd like to call your attention to the fact that we have not only shown proper appreciation for Sheikh Anta Diop as a thinker, we have not shown proper appreciation for the African mind as a thinking mechanism with something to contribute to all mankind, to the whole world. And we have forgotten that the first concept of humanity started in Africa, among African people.
Finally, I get to talk about a scholar that shook the body of studies known as Egyptology to its core. He shook it so much that his name is one that shall not be uttered in Egyptological circles. A man whose works expose the dishonesty and lack of integrity of Western scholarship. A man hailed by Dr. John Henry Clark, a famous African-American historian, as the world's foremost African thinker. A man that made Western scholarship revise all its assumptions about human history. A man that dared to challenge the experts' narrative on human history and stand strong. However, there are those who would beg to differ. Some accuse him of being a pseudoscientific or an unscientific researcher, a politician that abused science, a fraud, an imposter, a falsifier of history, a revolutionist, a myth creator, and etc. But are all these accusations true? Do these claims have any weight? Do his detractors accurately depict his character? Do they do justice to his thesis when asked about it? Do they fairly characterize the essence of his work? And more so, who even was this scholar? That scholar's name was Cheikh Anta Diop. If you want to find out about the man known as Cheikh Anta Diop and what he did, keep watching this video. So the first question I deem important to answer is, who was Cheikh Anta Diop? Cheikh Anta Diop was the brilliant African scholar born.
Now, Cheikh Anta Diop, what I lectured on in academia, this one of his books, The African Origins of Civilization, Myth or History, or Reality. I got another book in there, I feel like digging it out, narrated by John Henry Clark. And then this is another book by Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop, Civilization or Barbarism and Authentic Anthropology. They know what the real is. I'll give you a little narrative that we
born in Senegal in 1923. And when I say brilliant scholar, I mean it. The man was, and I'm not kidding here, a historian, a linguist, a physicist, a chemist, a philosopher, an anthropologist, a sociologist, an Egyptologist, an author, a professor, and a researcher. Okay, now that was a busy man. He obtained training and accreditations for all the occupations mentioned. He was a polymath, a trained scientist, and a trained researcher. He was one of the first scholars to use a multidisciplinary approach to African history. During his chemistry and physics curriculum, he attended classes taught by Nobel Prize winner Frédéric Joliot-Curie. He obtained a doctorate in social sciences with honorable mentions from the University of Paris in 1960. After that, he went on to become a professor at the University of Dakar. So just from this short intro, we can already see that we are not dealing with an unscientific man or a pseudoscientist. The man was a trained researcher of the fields he challenged. Hence, we are not dealing with a non-expert in the field discussing things that they may not have fully understood. So what did Dr. Diop actually challenge? Well, Cheikh Anta Diop challenged the idea that Africa had no historical past. I know, right? Crazy stuff. We all know Africans have no past, huh? The great philosopher Hegel said so. It's a fact. Europeans. Anyways, in his quest to prove that Africa indeed had a historical past, Cheikh Anta Diop, in his research, came upon evidence that Egypt was of Black African origin, and in his own words, he was bothered by it. Why? Because he claimed that they would accuse him of lying or trying to give Africa a mythical great past. For you see, at the time, it was common knowledge that Africa had no past up until Europeans came upon its shores. This was taught to Cheikh Anta Diop and countless other people when he was in school. But even then, he knew it was all BS, showcasing an early ability to sniff out BS of the so-called experts, who then were claiming boldly that Africa hadn't contributed anything to human history, or more accurately, to civilization. This belief is still alive today, though not as much as before. One can still hear an echo of this belief in the words of ex-French President Sarkozy when he claims that, and I quote, Africa had not entered history enough. BS, of course, since humanity's history started in Africa. Africa is the birthplace of humanity, just so everyone knows. Mind you, this fact was also being extremely challenged at the time Cheikh Anta Diop was doing his research and study. And guess who contributed into proving this fact? That's right, it's Cheikh Anta Diop. At the time, the expert used to believe that humanity emerged on each continent separately, although Charles Darwin had already mentioned that that was not very likely since his theory didn't work like that. As Diop also pointed out, Diop understood the theory of evolution very well, and he used that knowledge to put to rights the early history of humanity. So, that alone already caused a lot of indignation at the time, but our man Diop wasn't done with them. Oh no, he wasn't. He further went on to claim that Africa not only has a past, but also is home to ancient Egypt, one of the earliest and most sophisticated civilizations known to man. Diop brought forth undeniable evidence for a Negro-African Egypt, and boom, there it was. The bomb had been dropped. The scholars couldn't believe what they had heard. Their indignation reached the highest levels. They couldn't believe that an African dared to utter such heresy. Africa with a past, and on top of that, they even had a civilization, and they invented writing? Hell no, said the European scholar of the time. He must be making it all up or something. Egypt, an African civilization? Impossible. And so they ridiculed it at first. Then they became indignant as Diop brought forth more evidence supporting his thesis. Wow, what a way to debunk someone with ridicule instead of bringing counter-argument and counter-evidence. Alright, let's continue. Some accused him of being a fraud, a myth creator, a charlatan, and a liar. Some accused him of falsifying history, coming from the guys who were falsifying history at the time. Jesus, the projection.
Are y'all hearing what this saying, man? I hope we catching this. I want to play this last little bit before my time is up.
Yo, somebody help me out.
I want to play this. I want to show y'all something real
What's the name of
fast.
that song that goes, da-da, 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 da-da.
Hawass mentioned and decided that Egypt was black.
So I want y'all to see this.
You claim you are scientific, right? But you refuse to judge a thesis because it challenges your entire worldview. Anyways, that didn't stop Armand Diop at all. He actually doubled down and added more evidence that could not be ignored, and so the thesis was finally received. Oh yeah, because you can't keep ignoring a lot of evidence. When the thesis was received, it was defended for 6 hours, by the way. Yeah, 6 hours. Let that sink in. After this thesis, Diop received his doctorate of arts in social sciences with honorable mentions. He later published his thesis and popularized it in his first book, Nation Nègre et Culture, a book that was later translated into English with the title The African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality. This book contains all of Diop's arguments for a black
this book
African
right here.
ancient Egypt. It is a big book containing ancient testimonies, linguistic evidence, iconographical evidence, and cultural evidence to support his thesis, as well as an understanding of how the knowledge was buried by Western scholarship. In the book, he also addresses various opposing arguments. It's not just some random guy who saw the black statue of King Tut, as Hawass mentioned, and decided that Egypt was black because of that. It's not. Sheikh Anta Diop's argument is a scientific one. He used the scientific method to research his conclusions. He researched and sourced his thesis. He brought forth evidence that supported his thesis.
So now let's go to this last little part because I got a couple minutes left. I just want to show scholars, man. It's like we're not out here to argue nothing. That's what they want us to do. We ain't gonna fall for that. I just want to show you an intro. I used to put all this on the college campus. That's why I be laughing. I'm like, our people ain't into nothing. Make a mistake. Wait till I start playing Steve Coakley videos, man. Y'all gonna be like, oh my God.
It's very important to understand that
for a little bit.
here in America,
That intro kind of long.
the American president is not a native.
There we go.
I want to dedicate this lecture tonight to my Queen of the Nile, Jacqueline Van Sertima. My lecture tonight is based on a book which I edited, which came out just about 2 months ago, Egypt Revisited. It's more than a revisitation of Egypt, the land, because Egypt, the land, is now controlled by non-Egyptians. I received a very serious letter from England a few days ago in which a gentleman who's been trying, along with other blacks in Britain, to establish the African origin of Egyptian civilization, submitted to me letters by the British Museum and others pointing out to him that very few Egyptians would accept that they're African. And I had to point out to him, but those Egyptians are not Africans at all. It's very important to understand that here in America, the American president is not a Native American. He's not indigenous to America. He's not an Aboriginal or original American. Likewise, in Egypt, we are dealing with people who invaded Egypt around 638 AD, and very few of them have anything whatsoever to do with the Pyramid Age, with the remarkable achievements of the early Egyptians. We have to make a very clear distinction between the modern Egyptian and the ancient Egyptian. That does not mean that Egypt does not contain native Egyptians. When Sadat was here a few years ago, Sadat said on CBS, "I am a black man, and I'm the first new pharaoh in 2,000 years. Of course, it was struck off the air, but he repeated it in other places like the Jesse Jackson. Now, the battle is being waged fiercely, very fiercely, even though letters were sent to me about 2 years ago inviting me to join the UNESCO International Commission for Rewriting the History of the World. Every time a letter arrives, first of all, they sent to ask me for my vita, which I sent. Then they sent to ask me what journal, what issues, what areas, what dates, what periods I would be interested in, which I laboriously told them in great detail what areas I would be interested in. Then another letter comes half a year later from another person, another section, asking me what I would like to do. It goes on and on like that. There is profound resistance in the world to this. It is a very serious matter. And it has become a very serious matter now in the United States because there is a movement on in many parts of this country to infuse African and African American materials into the curriculum. Thus it is that more and more I'm being invited to speak to all white audiences who come there politely and hope that they will have a chance to contradict or to jeer, and then find that they have nothing much they can say that could contradict the evidence before them. It is amazing how little is known about the discoveries that have been made over the last 15 to 20 years. The big debate about this question arose in 1974 when for the first time Sheikh Anta Diop of Senegal and Théophile Obenga of the Congo came to the UNESCO to give their version of the story. This is the first time a world body, a world historical body, a world body set in historical reconstruction actually invited Africans to say something about their own history. It was a very important meeting. And in fact, with the death of Diop, we had mourned so deeply his passing, but we found a few months ago in September that his good friend and colleague Théophile Obenga visited the United States. And he had an opportunity to meet him in Washington, but just before he came, he submitted to me a huge book of about 800 pages in French dealing with the philosophy of the early pharaohs. This is a stunning book, and in this volume, you have a translation in English, in beautiful English, by two remarkable women, Elizabeth Clemens and Irene D'Almeida, which tries to capture the essence of the work on the philosophy of the pharaohs. And the one thing that emerges, and emerges with great clarity, is the fact that the thinking of the early Egyptians is very African. They were the first people to develop a conception, a complex conception of the origin of the universe. And it was no simple matter about suddenly God appeared and he just breathed on the water. It wasn't as simple as that. They actually talked about an aqueous state. They actually talk about the primal stuff of the universe, and they speak of this curious yelity, a strange vibration, perhaps through some explosion that occurs in this primal stuff.
All right, man, that's my hour. So we'll proceed later on. I gotta get back to my business. But I just want to put it out there, man, to show people, man, like our scholars didn't argue with each other. You hear they all referencing each other. And then what happened? The European tried to debunk it, but they can't. And that's what I'm saying from scholarship. We got to get out of it. We got to get out of hating our brothers that's educators like myself and others. We synchronize the science. That's what we hear. And once I start showing y'all all these Tony Brown journals from back in the day, you see all these brothers from different backgrounds and intellect. They're there debunking Eurocentric and Negrocentric propaganda, not arguing with each other, not trying to drive without no license or none of that stuff, but teach it historically. And just like Dr. Ben was saying, man, you no disrespect for churches, and just like my dad was saying, but like, okay, if you go to church, you ain't gonna come and get no substance. Here's a person that can give you wisdom. And you giving donations to something that's meaningless with nothing out of it, and you have a person that's doing all this work. I love y'all in peace.